I'm very pleased to be able to speak with Martin Maurer of the Association of Foreign Banks in Switzerland, right, whose office is just around the corner. And we're having a chat about Switzerland as a financial center. Just give us a sense of where everything is right now, in terms of the wealth management industry in Switzerland. What would you think are the top highlights in the industry right now?
We have come through a relatively critical phase in the last 10 years from an older model which was based on a very restrictive way of the banking secrecy. We are now much more open. Also, confidentiality is still a very important issue. I guess we are still history for us is important. What we did, how we did it, we don't change that from one day, but we adopted to new situations. So we want to be predictable, we want to be accountable, and we are more transparent within very clearly defined rules. That includes also that our know-how, which we bring from the past, from the history, is still very much it's very important, it's still very much up to date. We change it, we adopt it, we have innovated both in the way on the processes, both in the way we talk to people, both on our client relations, and then of course the technology. Technology has always been an important issue. We always have a very high rate of reinvestment in the capital stock of banks.
Right.
And we have a very high, a very modern banking sector.
Okay, give us a sense of banks and then the non-banks, like the telcos and so on.
Outside of the banks, we have the most important financial players are then the classical wealth manager, which don't have an account, which give advice. But in a sense, those are usually at the same level, in the same processes as the banks are, because usually they have been bankers, they went down and do their advice, to do wealth management. So there we see maybe a bit more modern people, more dynamic people than they used to be 10 years ago. It's also a generation question. And then we have, of course, now new coming up is the whole fintech things, crowdfunding. We don't make much, or there's not much noise about this, but that is very typical for Switzerland. You don't make so much noise, but when you do it properly. It takes always a while, but once it catches on, you grow very quickly.
And so what's growing quickly in Switzerland right now? I mean, the fund management industry grew from nothing, and then Switzerland, won back its position in asset management. That was in the 1990s, basically, right? So what's current? What's fast growing? What are the trends today?
The trends are still wealth management, but that is still the most important business. We have a bit more now on trade finance, corporate finance, but the wealth management but it is more broader. It's not only managing wealth, financial wealth. It's really that trying to understand that each client is like a small company with its balance sheet, which is a profit and loss, and what does the person want, what is need in terms of information, in terms of management arts, management real estate, management non-financial assets, and that is becoming much more important. Also because we have a shift in clients. The European clients tend to get less important than non-European clients, and those non-European clients have very often different needs. They're mostly family, they have needs which go beyond in advice, to go beyond the classical portfolio management.
So when we say wealth management, just the word wealth, we're talking about lifestyle, we're talking about art, we're talking about branded goods, and all of which Switzerland is famous for. Like you go to Geneva, you see Patek Philippe, the brands here and so on. Now, how is it all coming together and holding together? And who are the kind of clients who come to Switzerland to seek advice, to do things, and what is their asset compositions looking like right now?
I guess there are like two broad clusters. One is, you could say that there's like family office type of service you want to have, which you either by the bank or with family. We have a lot of family offices here, which you try then to read a very broad way of managing these financial and non-financial assets. And the other are then those who really come really for the service itself, so the trading. In Switzerland, you can trade them on basically all stocks in the world. You can trade in all currencies. We are multi-currency, multi-stock. It's really not just it's a reality. You can do it in Brazil, you can buy shares in Australia, and not only in pounds or in dollars and euros, but you have a very, very broad. So people who say, okay, look, I have my family, but I want to have a bank who allows me to sell and buy very quickly. then basically nearly execution only or special advice people, those are the second group who come to Switzerland.
In terms of sovereigns, governments, and relationships with other countries, like the wealth management or the wealth management centers of Singapore, Hong Kong, Luxembourg, how does Switzerland position itself?
We would like to, or we do position ourselves as an independent country, a European country with a long track record and we have gone through many difficult phases, and no other, for instance, can say, look, we managed always not only good times but also bad times. For that one, Singapore, Hong Kong, much too young, much too specialized in the region. Luxembourg is within the EU, they have an advantage. On the other hand, they depend very much on what the EU is doing, and that's where we try to see, if you look for a good place, independent one in Europe, then Switzerland is the place.
And if someone came to visit Switzerland and wanted to get a sense of how wealth is managed here, what would your top of mind recommendations be?
If you want to talk to a specialist, you could talk to a wealth manager, be a bank or a non-bank, or then just walk through Geneva or Zurich and have a look what wealth management and what wealth can be, what you can do with wealth. You go to you can have the big watch companies, you have the visionary companies, you have the art they have the art dealers here. So you see how broad actually the understanding of wealth management is.
And how has the family-owned private banks evolved since all the regulations that have come into place?
The fact that the classical banquier privé who had actually is responding with his own money has disappeared because they changed into share companies, simply because of big litigation risk we had in the tradition. And there was always a famous thing, you should never have higher risks than actually your own monies, and they have changed that. But they still own of their banks, and they got more international. They have a much more innovative in products. They they go from hedge funds or to things. They have broadened their product down. That's why they are much, let's say, they're more modern, but still with the very tradition and knowing how far to go with taking risk and not go further than that.
Martin, thank you very much for spending time with me this morning.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.